Welcome to the show. We are living in a time of unprecedented information flow. We often talk about big data in business, but what about the big data of our minds? The sheer universal volume of knowledge, past and present, accessible to us. When we feel overwhelmed, anxious, or lost, we're experiencing a knowledge overload. Today, we're asking a fundamental question: how do we navigate this? Our guest is Dr. Ilara Vance, a specialist in cognitive systems and universal consciousness. Welcome, Dr. Vance.
Thank you for having me.
Your work uses the term emotional intelligence is the new navigation system. Can you break that down for us?
Certainly, we define emotional intelligence, or EI, in a very specific way here. It's not just about managing your mood, it's the ability to navigate, regulate, and comprehend the torrent of emotions that arise from what we call big data knowledge. This knowledge isn't just today's news, it's the universal flow. Everything from the beginning of time until now, imprinted on what has often been called the tree of knowledge of God.
That's a huge scope. So, when our mind accesses or interacts with any piece of this universal data, a memory, a cultural idea, a stimulus, it produces an emotional reaction, and EI is the skill to handle that reaction?
Exactly. The higher one's EI, the greater their ability to not be dictated by those emotional reactions, but to instead comprehend, regulate, and navigate their response. This independence from automatic emotional ups and downs is what leads to a more successful and fulfilled life.
Can you give us a quick, tangible example?
Think about a simple craving. The big data of food scarcity, reward systems, and sugar rushes produces an emotional pull for extra non-essential food. Low EI is being dictated by that impulse. High EI is comprehending the data, regulating the impulse, and choosing a different path. It applies to resisting social media algorithms or overcoming the emotional resistance to exercise.
So, it's about choosing mastery over being a puppet to the data.
Precisely.
You introduce a fascinating duality when discussing the spectrum of emotional intelligence, dividing people into two main energetic paths, the left-hand path and the right-hand path. How do these groups differ?
This is a core concept. We map the emotional intelligence spectrum onto two different energy flows. The left-hand path operates with an anti-clockwise energy flow. It is fundamentally collective-centric, driven by universal values like love, gratitude, and compassion. It aligns with the universal flow of energy.
And the right-hand path?
The right-hand path is defined by a clockwise flow, which is essentially an egoistic, centric flow. Its emotional landscape is rooted in concepts like hatred, bigotry, a lack of gratitude, and supremacist ideas. The notion that one group is somehow superior to others. It prioritizes the individualistic ego over the collective.
So the LHP is in harmony with the universal flow while the RHP is in resistance?
That's an excellent summary. People on the right-hand path are constantly dictated by and governed by the emotional reactions from that big data of universal knowledge. They are always fighting an uphill battle. The left-hand path people, however, are independent. They govern the big data because they are aligned with the deeper, harmonious truth of the universal consciousness.
It sounds like the RHP, being egocentric, is fighting against the current of the universe itself.
They are, and this makes them emotionally reactive and prone to what we call energy vampirism. They take energy from the collective without contributing love or unity. In contrast, the left-hand path is built on giving and being in love with the collective.
That is a powerful distinction, and it reframes many of the societal tensions we see today. If the left-hand path is the one that leads to true guidance and success, how does one move on to it? What is the algorithm for mastering emotional intelligence?
Mastery is fundamentally about surrendering the ego. It's about shifting your love and allegiance from the self, your immediate tribe, or your nation, to the collective consciousness and the greater universal good.
Surrendering the ego. That's a common concept in many philosophies, but how does it specifically connect to emotional intelligence in this context?
It's a programming shift. The mastery of emotional intelligence is a set of algorithmic programs you choose to follow. You align your emotional responses with the greater good, with the universal tree of knowledge. This means replacing the egocentric belief, I am most important, with the universal value of equal love for all.
And what is the benefit of this surrender?
When you surrender your ego to this concept, you are on the path to aligning your personal algorithm with the universal one. The ego becomes invisible. You become a single unit with the universal collective ego, an entity based on pure love, gratitude, and compassion.
So, what are the central components of this universal algorithm?
The core values that constitute the left-hand path flow, the God consciousness, are love, gratitude, compassion, singularity, and prayer. The fundamental principle is love for others what you love for yourself. This sets you directly on the path to I mastery, because love in this context is the central operating system.
To summarize, right-hand path is egocentric, clockwise, and fighting the universe. Left-hand path is collective-centric, anti-clockwise, and supported by the universal energy flow.
Absolutely. When you are on the LHP, the entire universe is, in essence, supporting you for correct guidance and synchronicity with the tree of knowledge. You are no longer working against the odds.
Dr. Vance, this has been incredibly thought-provoking. For our listeners, what is the most important single takeaway? If someone is tired of being wired and weary from information overload, what's their first step toward this left-hand path of mastery?
Their first step is a simple, conscious choice. Do not love your ego more than the collective consciousness. When faced with an emotional reaction, anger at a news article, jealousy of a neighbor, fear of an other, stop and ask, is this thought serving my ego, or is it aligning me with universal love, gratitude, and compassion for the collective?
It sounds like a moment-to-moment commitment to aligning with that anti-clockwise flow.
It is. Being on the correct path with God consciousness, which is love and unity, is the prerequisite for the successful regulation, navigation, and comprehension of your emotional intelligence. It's the difference between being a victim of the data and being the master of your emotional response to it.
And with mastery, you move from being dependent on the data's emotional dictates to being truly independent.
That is the ultimate goal.
Dr. Alara Vance, thank you so much for shedding light on this powerful framework for emotional intelligence.
My pleasure.
We've been talking with Dr. Alara Vance on how emotional intelligence is the new navigation system to guide us through universal knowledge overload. We encourage you to reflect on whether your personal energy is flowing clockwise or anti-clockwise.